Awesome, thanks. Okay, cool. So are we ready to go over supplies, you think, Kira?
Yeah, we're good. I've got my list here in case people have questions.
Okay, cool. So like Kira said, we're going to be painting our evening cherry blossoms this week. So this is a really pretty cherry blossom painting. It's kind of fun for the end of summer when it's still warm out. And we're going to be doing a really fun technique tonight that I'm not sure, maybe you guys have done it before, or maybe not, and we'll get to that in a minute. It's kind of a fun surprise way to paint our cherry blossoms tonight. Not really a surprise. You probably see it here on my table, but I'll go over it. Don't worry. So I've got here a 10 by 10 canvas. You can see this example one's a little bit larger, but I'm painting it on a 10 by 10 tonight. I've got my Craft Smart Variety 10-piece set of brushes, I think. So this I got at Michael's. It just has all kinds of brushes. It's got my flat brushes, angle, round brushes, liner brushes. So tonight we're only going to be using a couple of these, but this is the brush pack I'm going to be using. I've got my palette paper, which is just wax-coated paper that I like to mix my paint on. I've got some paper towels. I've got my water basin to clean my brushes. And then like Kira said, we're gonna be using our FolkArt acrylic paints as always. So tonight, the colors we have are navy blue. We've got coffee bean, which is this nice chocolate brown color. It's the color of a coffee bean. We've got engine red, but any red will be fine. Any just pure red is great for this. We've got baby pink. And then we've also got wicker white. So any white will be fine for this. Any brown is fine. If you don't have baby pink tonight, you can always just mix your red and your white and you have baby pink. So we've got it here just to make it a little bit easier for us. But if you only have a few colors at home, you can absolutely mix this color. The navy blue color is going to be just used for our background. So if you want a different background color, you can feel free to use a different color for that. Or if you don't have this color, you can substitute it with another color that you do have at home. It's totally up to you. And then, like I said, we're going to be doing a special painting technique tonight where we'll be using some Q-tips and some rubber bands. So this is a really fun way to paint our cherry blossoms. These are just regular Q-tips. Mine are pink and plastic, but any regular Q-tips will work. And then we're going to be using some rubber bands to bundle them together into these little bundles, which I'll show you later on, to paint our cherry blossoms. So it's a really fun, simple, sort of relaxing technique, and I'm really excited to show it to you guys. So to get started painting, you think we're ready, Kira?
Yeah, absolutely. Everybody is just asking about products. So again, we'll let you know what we have as we go.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
Everybody's
okay, cool.
just saying hi, yeah.
Yay.
If you have pointy Q-tips, it's okay.
Any kind of Q-tips is
any kind of Q-tips.
Yeah, mine are cute, are really cute and pink. I don't even know where I got them from. These are just the ones that I had, but any Q-tips are fine.
Yep. And how many Q-tips do they need, Jessie?
I would say 10 is safe.
Okay.
You probably won't need more than 10.
Okay. Well, we'll get started and we'll slow down as needed. I think people are just gathering their supplies and ready to
absolutely.
paint.
Keep asking questions. Keep putting questions in the comment. We love to hear from you. We love to be able to answer your questions as we go. So I am going to get started.
A lot of people coming off of virtual learning this week, from last week, looks like they need some relaxation. So yes. I love that.
I'm sure you do need some relaxation. A lot of new stay-at-home or teach from home moms I know this week, so, and dads and grandparents I'm sure too. So so good. I'm glad that you guys are here and able to relax with us tonight. So to get started, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab my coffee bean, which this is just a really pretty brown color. Any brown will do. Any sort of just true brown that you have at home is perfect for this color. If you don't have brown, you can technically always mix red, yellow, and blue to make your brown. So just even parts of all three, and that will give you a pretty true brown. But the color we're using tonight is coffee bean. So then I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna grab, I have a small round brush here. This is my number 5 round brush. This is my Craft Smart brush. But any, liner brush or smaller round brush will do for this. We're gonna start sketching out the outline of our tree trunk here. So any smallish round brush, like I said, for this is fine. If you don't have a round brush and you only have a flat brush, you can totally use your flat brush, just use it vertically. So instead of using it, the flat way, horizontally, you'll use it vertically so you'll get a nice thin line. But I'm gonna go ahead and use my round brush because I have it. So I'm gonna dip my brush in the water. So I don't want a ton of water on my brush. I'm gonna tap it off, but I do want my brush to be wet. And I'm gonna pick up some of my coffee bean, and you can see that it's a little bit runny there. We're gonna do sort of sketching with our paintbrush, which I call it, instead of using a pencil. So that's why I wanna water it down a little bit, just to make it a little more forgiving, so we have a nice, smooth coat of paint. I don't want it to be really bumpy when we start painting in our tree trunks. That's why I water it down just ever so slightly for this part, sort of an underpainting. So now, to paint our tree trunk, again, just to remind you guys, I've got coffee bean, which is our brown color, and I've got a number 5 round brush. And I just watered it down just the tiniest bit. I hardly added any water. I just want it to be a little bit thinner than how the paint normally is. So I'm gonna find the center of my canvas. So we're gonna start sketching our trunk. So I'm gonna find the bottom center, and I'm just gonna eyeball it. I'm not super concerned about getting it exactly right. So I'll say about there looks about center to me. So I'm gonna make a mark about 3/4 of an inch on either side. So hopefully you can see there where my finger is, and then where I made those 2 marks. That's about as wide as you want our tree trunk to be. So if you want your tree trunk to be wider or narrower, now's the time to do it. You can see how we're gonna start drawing our tree trunk from those 2 lines there. So that's how wide I want my tree trunk to be. So now from this line, I'm gonna paint, from this marker, I'm gonna paint a line going up and curve really gently to the right. So I'm gonna paint my line going up and curve really gently. And this part does not need to be perfect, because that's why we're sort of doing this sketching. If you feel more comfortable using a pencil, feel free. But I very rarely use a pencil. I usually just do all of my sketching with my paint and my paintbrush. And then I just paint over any errors that I have. So I'm gonna do my little branch going that way. You can see it's a little bit watered down, so it's nice and flat on my canvas. There's not gonna be any peaks that we have to paint over. And then I'll probably have this one going up a little bit straighter. So we'll go up and then curve to the left a little. And this is just how I'm painting my tree trunk. If you have a different idea or a different inspiration for a cherry blossom tree, and you'd like to paint a different shape for yours, feel free to do that. If you just want to make your own up in your own head, that's totally fine. So feel free to copy mine, or pull up a picture on your phone and copy that, or just come up with your own composition. It's totally up to you. It does not have to be just like mine. So now I'm going to sort of connect these 2 in the middle. I just sort of bring them down, just trying to think of how branches would be. We're going to do some layering of our branches too. And maybe I'll have one sort of jutting out from there. Mine are a little bit thick, so you can make yours thinner if you want, or thicker. It's totally up to you. Maybe I'll make a little branch coming up that way. And I'm going to make another one coming out of the left here. And again, it can be just like mine, or it can be your own, your completely own imagination. It's totally up to you. Maybe I'll have a little bit of a branch coming out of there too. I don't want to overdo it, because you're not going to see a whole lot of this, because we're going to be painting all of these beautiful flowers on top of it. So you don't get too crazy with the detail. You don't have to go get really detailed towards the top, especially because we're really going to cover all of that up anyway. So just keep that in mind when you're doing your composition. You don't want to spend too much time on it. You don't have to get too detailed, because we're really just going to paint right over it for the most part. So I'm happy with that. So go ahead and take a second to make your little outline. How's everybody doing, Kira?
Everybody's good. People were asking if they don't have a square, could they use a rectangular? And I said to go portrait instead of landscape if you're doing
that. Absolutely, absolutely. Or if you did want to go landscape, you could paint 2 cherry blossom trees and just sort of fill it up, like a large and small one. It's totally up to you. The way I'm going to teach it tonight, you'll be able to paint any number or any size cherry blossom tree you want to. So it's totally up to you. All right. So while people are catching up a little bit, while people are still painting their trunks, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put a little bit of navy blue on my palette. I'm just going to put about a nickel-sized amount. Oops, that really came out there. And I'm going to grab my 3/4 inch flat brush, which is just sort of a medium flat brush, like a 1 inch or a 1/2 inch will be fine too. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to start painting around the outside of my trunk. So of course I just want to paint the background. That's all I'm going to do right now. Nothing fancy, just going to paint a nice, even, smooth coat all around. Oh, I had a piece of dry paint in there. All around the outline that we just painted. So you can see I'm sort of using the edge of my brush to get right up to my tree trunk. So I have a nice smooth finish. You want it to be nice and even. I'm just using that edge. And if you ever feel like your brush is really dragging too much, these FolkArt acrylic paints are super rich and super creamy. They're nice and thick. So sometimes if you're doing like a base coat or something like this, it might be helpful just to dip your brush in the tiniest bit of water when you pick up your paint, just to help smooth it out a little. And of course, we like that the paint is so rich and creamy because it's great for mixing and it's great for coverage. But sometimes you do just need to, sort of put a little bit of wetness on your brush just to make it flow a little bit better. So I'm gonna grab some more navy paint because I didn't grab nearly enough. And again, this is navy blue, and I'm just using my 3/4 inch flat brush. When you're doing your background, when you get to around some of the smaller branches, feel free to switch to a smaller flat brush. I may do that when I get into some of the smaller, more detailed areas, just to make it easier. So I can control where my brush is going a little better, because this one might get a little clunky when I'm going around some of those tighter areas. And you can also, people always ask me this, you can paint the sides of your canvas now if you want to. So if you have a canvas like mine, you can go ahead and paint the sides blue now if you want, or any color that you choose. I usually wait till the end just because I end up making a mess when I do that, when there's wet paint on the top and on the sides. So I generally wait till I'm finished with my painting to paint the sides, but feel free to paint your sides now, especially if you're a little bit ahead of us. If you're a quick painter and you've already starting to finish up your background, feel free to paint those sides.
So somebody had a question about whether to use water or floating medium. So really, you could use either.
Yeah, you can use either. So floating medium, for those of you who don't know, is made for floating paint. So that kind of comes from like the decorative painting world. And that's when you use your brush to create shading and shadows in one stroke without having to do lots of blending. That's where floating medium helps. So it really does just sort of make your paint really smooth. And it's sort of made up of the same stuff that's in paint. And so it really doesn't change the pigment of your paint, if that makes sense. When you add water, it really dilutes the paint and it makes it much thinner, while it makes it flow just as well. It does make it thin, whereas floating medium doesn't change the thickness of the paint, it just makes it flow better. I don't know if I'm explaining that really well, but hopefully that made sense to you guys. So yes, if you have floating medium at home, feel free to use that. But for our purposes here tonight, we just, a little dab of water is gonna work perfectly fine for just helping us to paint our background. But yeah, if you have floating medium in front of you, feel free to use some of that.
I think some people went ahead and they pre-painted their canvas this time, because we know we like to base coat and then dry. But
Okay, cool.
like they're one step ahead of us, but that will totally work. You can go, you just have to skip this step and you can go back, and because FolkArt is so thick and creamy and has great coverage, you can paint your cherry blossom tree right on top of the navy when Jessie gets to that point.
Absolutely, you can. Yeah, you guys are smart, and you clearly have been joining our Monday classes, because we do that sometimes. We paint it and then we dry it so you can paint right on top of it. But yep, you guys are just a step ahead of the game.
Yeah, and you'll want to paint your tree. You can actually go ahead and paint your tree that Jessie painted, but I would use a light color. So you could use a light brown, you could use chalk, a pencil, you could use your white, anything like that would work.
Yeah, definitely. That's a great point. Yeah, you can sketch your tree right on top. I love that idea. You can just even use white, especially if you thin it down a lot so it's just barely visible. That's what I would do if I were you. If I was going to sketch on top of the blue, if I'd already painted the blue, I would probably just use like a very thin down white, almost like an inky consistency. And that way it'll be really easy if you make a mistake just to wipe it off. All right, so I'm cleaning off my brush here. I'm just switching to a smaller flat brush. so I can get into some of those smaller areas. So this is my number 8 flat. So it's probably like a 1/4 of an inch if you've got that. Sometimes brushes are marked by numbers, and sometimes they're marked by the sizes. So if you've got a 1/4 of an inch flat brush at home, that is what you're looking for.
And you're still just using the navy to fill in around the branches.
Yep, yeah, we're still using our navy blue, and we're just painting the background. I just switched to this smaller guy so I could get into the details around the branches. The big brush I was using would be a little clunky for these parts. And I want to make sure I get right up to the branches. Even if I go over the lines a little bit, that's okay. We can touch it up when we paint the brown on the branches, but I do want to make sure there's no white showing in between. Get right up to the edge. And again, this is my number 8 flat brush. Any small flat brush will work fine though.
Everyone's just painting along.
Awesome.
Fill it in. I can see everybody. Love it.
I'm so glad you guys are joining us. Hopefully you've been to some of our classes before, and if not, if this is your first class with us, welcome. We are so happy to be able to paint with you guys this Monday night and every Monday night for the next several Mondays. So keep looking back for our classes. We're here every Monday night, and we also do a lot of other classes during the week. So keep an eye out for our plaid crafts classes. That's a tongue twister for sure.
It's been a long day.
I know, it's only Monday. Again, I'm just still painting my background with my navy blue and my number 8 flat brush. I'm just going around these details of the branches, making sure I have a nice, smooth, even coat of paint. And don't forget up here, of course, I'm always going to try to make it as smooth and perfect as I can, but if it's not totally perfect around the branches, don't stress, because as you can see in our final painting, we're going to paint right over all of that with our flowers, with our cherry blossoms. So don't stress if it's not perfect, especially towards the top of the painting. It's really the base of the trunk that we want to get, you know, more finished looking, because that's the part you'll be able to see in our final painting. How many people do we have watching, Kira?
Gosh, we have 989 people.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
Amazing.
Wow. That is crazy.
Yeah, people are still joining actually.
We're really happy to have you guys here in our class tonight. Thank you so much for joining. And if you like this painting, I think Kira said this in the beginning, but you can go on michaels.com, and they have all of our other paint nights that we've done with them. So far, we've done, you know, at least half a dozen, I think more than that, on these Monday night paint classes. And they have them all recorded there on michaels.com. So feel free to go back and check out some of our older classes too. Check out those recordings, because there's lots of paintings you can paint along with.
Yes, it's me. I just put the michaels.com address where you guys signed up. You know, you can choose to look at other classes, which is a really great feature that Michaels has, that it's like, if you want to go back, it's just this amazing library of education and experiences that they've created during this time, which is so great.
Yep. Yeah, it is really awesome. And the best part is they're all free. It's crazy to me, the amount of education and activities they have right there on their website, all for free. So make sure you guys take advantage of that. It's really great. Okay, so hopefully you guys are finishing up your background. I'm starting to finish up mine. Just gonna make sure I've got it all. I always like to tilt mine in the light a little, especially when I'm painting with dark colors, because sometimes when it's wet, you can't really see if you've missed any spaces. So I'm just tilting mine around to see there's any spots that need a little bit more attention. But it looks like I'm pretty good for the most part. Got it nice and covered. Okay, so now I'm just getting nitpicky, so I'm gonna put my brush down. So I'm gonna go ahead and clean my brush off. I always like to get my brush nice and clean between colors because you don't want to let that paint dry in there because that's how you ruin some really nice brushes. I'm definitely guilty of that. So we're going to start painting the tree trunk now. So of course we've got it all sketched out and we've got our background painted. And I already have some of my coffee bean on my palette paper. So if you guys at home, I know some of you said you had painted the navy ahead of time and let it dry before class. So go ahead and put some coffee bean on your palette now because you probably don't have any yet. And for those of you who sketched along with me and painted your tree trunk in coffee bean, then you should probably have some on your palette already. If you need more, now's the time to go ahead and grab some more of that brown paint. So all we're gonna do first to start is grab a small flat brush. So I'm gonna go back to my number 8 flat, which is the one I just had last. And all we're gonna do is we're gonna fill in our tree trunk. So we're just gonna do sort of like a coloring book, and we're just gonna fill that in with a flat brown color. We're not adding any sort of dimension or texture yet. We just wanna get that nice even brown color down on our tree trunk, and then we'll go back and we'll add some details. So again, I'm just going right up to the edge. I wanna make sure I get a nice clean edge now because we're not really painting over it much anymore. So now's the time to get your nice even edge. And again, I'm just going to use the edge of my brush to get into some of these smaller areas. I'm going to go right up to the navy blue. I don't want any of my white canvas showing through. And if you get a little bit of navy, if you get too close to your navy paint and it's still wet and you get a little bit in your brown, just keep on painting. Don't even worry about it because we're going to be adding so much definition and dimension with some navy in a couple steps that you're not going to see it at all. So just keep on painting. Don't stress about that. Don't feel like you need to fix it. And also, like I said, I keep saying this, we're going to be painting so many cherry blossoms on top of it, you're not going to see little things like that. And when you get to like the really small areas up here, if you want to switch to like a small round brush or a liner brush, you can feel free to do that too, if that feels more comfortable for you. I'm just using my brush sideways to get into those small areas.
Number 8?
Yep, I'm still using my number 8 flat.
Number 8 and coffee bean.
Yep, yes ma'am.
Lots of funny comments, you guys. Like, I love chatting with everybody. I mean, like, sweet, and thank you guys all for having us in the sweet comments. And I love that people's husbands have to eat dinner by themselves on Monday nights now because they're painting.
Luckily, my husband has game night on Monday nights, so it works out really well because otherwise he was always home alone. Then his game night started back up, so now he's playing games with his buddy. So kind of worked out for us, but I think there probably are a lot of husbands at home eating alone right now.
I've been called to say goodnight to my son, but I forgot to mute before, so everybody's heard that.
Well, y'all got to say goodnight to Ben that night. Oh, that's so funny.
Mom, do you have paint night again?
The real question is, do you get to have paint night again? I do miss when Ben used to come to the paint nights. That was always so fun.
Oh, lock down the office.
I know. But that's okay. I'm glad we at least still get to paint with our friends on Zoom.
Absolutely. It's just a funny thing how Zoom is just, it's part of your vocabulary now, like, right? That's a word that meant something else 6 months ago.
I know, it's like a noun and a verb. Let's Zoom. Want to Zoom me later? One of our coworkers always texts in the morning, are we Zooming this morning? That always cracks me up.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm just finishing up on my last branch here so we can get into some of the more fun details. Again, this is sort of just like the mindless part of it. It's sort of like a coloring book or a paint by numbers. We're just filling in these areas of color so that we can add the fun and pretty details on top of it. Trying to make sure we get
super relaxed, just painting some coffee.
I know. This is, like I said, like you can kind of turn your brain off for this part. It's kind of fun. Yeah, I do like this part. We should make sure we get all of the canvas covered. We don't want to see any raw canvas, any bare canvas. We want to see all be covered in paint at this point. So if you see any white showing through, if you see any naked canvas, make sure you put some paint on there because we don't want that at this point in our painting. So again, I'm going to tilt my painting a little bit so I can get a better look at where I need to smooth things out or touch up or add some more paint. Oops. And again, towards the top of the branches, I'm not super concerned about it because we're going to be adding so much detail with our flowers up there. So that's really all going to get covered up, as you can see in our final painting here that I have to my left. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead. I'm happy with that. I'm going to go ahead and clean my brush off. I'm going to hang on to my number 8 flat brush, the same little guy we've been using. I'm going to hang on to him because we're going to keep using him for the next couple of steps. All right. So I think everybody's caught up, Kira. Should we move on to our details?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I'm going to, I've got navy blue on my palette, and I've also got a little bit of coffee bean. I'm going to put a little bit more coffee bean on my palette right now because I'm kind of out. So I need a little bit more for my next step. And now, again, I still have my number 8 flat brush, which is just this little flat guy that we've been using for the past couple of steps. I'm going to pick up 1 part coffee bean, and I'm going to mix it with another part of navy blue. So even parts coffee bean and navy blue. We're going to mix those together and see what we get. So it's still looking pretty blue, but you can see we have a nice dark color here, which is what we're looking for. I'm going to put a little more coffee bean in there because I want it to be a little more brown. The color we're mixing now is going to be for the shadow of our tree. So you can see we have sort of a subtle shadow in here, and we sort of separated the branches of our tree with some shadow in these areas. So that's the color we're mixing now. So we do want it to be darker than our brown, but I don't want it to be quite that dark. I want it to be a little lighter, a little more brown. So I'm going to keep adding brown until it's the color that I'm happy with. You can see I'm just moving my brush back and forth to mix it so I can see what the color is going to be. And I always wipe the excess off. And again, it's still pretty dark. It's a really cool brown. So I'm going to add a little bit more of my coffee bean. I'm just adding a little scoop at a time. Hopefully you guys can see how much I'm adding. Just a little bit at a time. That's how I always like to mix colors, just adding a little bit more at a time, and then you can kind of tell which direction you need to be going in, which color it needs more of. All right, so I think I'm happy with that. I have sort of it's almost grayish looking. I have this nice, really cool, very deep brown. So that's what we're going to use to start adding some shadow to our tree trunk. So if you guys are familiar with painting or drawing or any kind of art really, you probably know a little bit about light sources. So I kind of touch on it a lot in our painting classes. I never get too deep into it because I like it to be, sort of beginner friendly, but here's a little tip. So whenever you're painting a painting and you're planning on having shadows and highlights, you need to choose a place where the light is coming from. So for our painting tonight, the light is going to be coming from the top left. So you can see where I'm sort of pointing here. This is where the light is. So probably the sun is what is lighting our tree today. So the sun is coming down from this side, which means all of our shadows are going to be on this side. So this side of every part of our painting is going to be in shadow. So what I mean is down here will be in shadow, the bottom of this branch will be in shadow, the bottom of this branch will be in shadow. Anything that wouldn't be seeing that light is going to be in shadow. And then of course the opposite of that, everything that does see the light is going to have the highlight. So the highlight will be on top of this branch will be very much in the light, this branch will have a highlight, this branch will have a highlight, and on this side of the tree will probably be in the light as well. So just a little something to think about for if you're making your own compositions, if you're ever doing your own painting at home, pick one place where the light is coming from, and that'll help you choose where your shadows and your highlights are going to be. So I've got this nice dark brown that we've mixed, and we mix it using navy blue and a good bit of coffee bean. It was mostly coffee bean with a little bit of navy blue. And I'm gonna start dabbing up the right side of this tree trunk. So I'm gonna start on the bottom, and I'm gonna do sort of a dabbing motion, and I'm doing it right on the right side. So some of you may have wet paint here on your tree trunk, and some of you may have dry paint on your tree trunk. Either way, it should be fine. So again, I'm just dabbing. I want to sort of keep that clean edge, so don't dab too far over it, but just right up to the edge, sort of a dabbing motion. We're going to go right up this branch, right along this edge. And again, I'm just going right up to the edge. I'm not going over it. I'm going to keep on dabbing. And again, this is our number 8 flat brush. We're still using this little flat guy. So all we did is we just did this dabbing motion all the way up the right side of our tree trunk. So again, this is a little bit of navy blue and coffee bean. So the navy blue and brown paint is mixed together to get this really deep, cool brown color. So now that you've got that little piece of the dark brown dabbed onto the right side of your tree, I haven't cleaned my brush off. I still have the paint on it. I'm gonna pick up some coffee bean and I'm gonna blend it into the rest of the coffee bean. So if you need to wipe some of the excess paint off, you can do that. But I'm just gonna use regular coffee bean, the regular pure brown color that we started with, and I'm gonna blend it in to the rest of the brown tree. So you can see it sort of blends it in so it looks less stark. And again, we're just doing dabbing motions. We're just blending very gently, very simple blending. I'm going all the way up, just overlapping the brown area of the trunk and the deep shadow that we just painted in. So now we have a nice blended shadow. So hopefully you guys can see that. Now it's a little more subtle. It's not so stark anymore. So we're going to keep doing this exact same technique all along the areas that I just talked about a little bit where there would be shadow if our light source is coming from the top left. So right on the bottom of this branch would be in shadow. So I'm going to add a little bit of my very dark brown. Again, I'm going to do the dabbing motion. I'm kind of going sideways because it's a thinner branch. I'm just going to do that dabbing all the way up the bottom side of this branch. Do it up here at the top too, just a little bit. And I'm going to grab my coffee bean and I'm going to blend it in, overlapping both colors. And I'm not washing my brush in between. I'm just blending it in, just using dabbing motions. Don't overthink it, just dab your brush. It's not really anything fancy going on here. We just want to get those two colors blended. So now I'm trying to think of where I want to make, you can see here in our final painting, we've made it so that this branch looks like it's behind the front tree trunk. So I'm going to use this dark brown that we mixed to sort of distinguish where those are. I'm going to paint a little V. So can you see what I did there? I just painted a little V with the same brush. I haven't changed brushes or colors. I painted a little V, and we're going to make that branch look like it's coming out from behind our trunk in the front here, just to give it a little more dimension. So I'm going to paint a shadow in there to sort of distinguish these branches from one another. Adding a little more shadow in there. Again, I'm just dabbing, nothing fancy. And then I'm going to blend it in with my coffee bean. So hopefully you can see what we did there. We just added a little bit of darkness right there to make it look, and now you can see it looks like that branch is coming out from behind our trunk in the foreground. Look like it's coming out from the back of it maybe. So I'm going to keep adding shadows. So there'll probably be a shadow under this branch here, this little guy. So I'm going to add a little shadow there. I'm going to wipe off the excess and I'll blend it in with a little bit of coffee bean. Let's see, there probably would be a little bit of a shadow underneath this branch here. If the sun was coming down from this side, this part would be in shadow. So we'll paint a little bit of shadow along the bottom of that branch too. It wouldn't be on the left side of the tree. That side's probably going to be in light, but just this branch on the lower half of that will probably be in shadow. And the more you paint and the more you have to sort of choose and decide where your highlights are and where your lowlights are, you'll get better and better at it. And it sort of becomes instinct to you. Once you've chosen where your light source is coming from, it's sort of just second nature. You'll know exactly where the shadows will be and where the highlights will be, and you won't really need to think about it so much. Oops. So you can see here, I dropped a little bit of water onto my canvas and my paint was still wet. And so when I wiped it away, it lifted the paint up. So if that's happening to you, just let it dry and then you can go back over it with your brown, if that's happened to anybody else. Just a little tip for you. Okay. So I think I'm happy with those shadows. So go ahead, guys, and just take a minute to keep putting in the shadows where you feel like you'd have shadows on your branches and on your tree trunk. Clean my brush off real quick.
So some people are asking, the more paint they put on, the paint is coming off, and it's because your canvas is wet right now.
Mm-hmm.
So Jesse, would you just recommend kind of like letting that area dry and then going back?
Yeah, definitely the best and easiest way to fix that is going to be to just let it dry. If you have a hair dryer, hit it with a hair dryer and have it nice and dry when you put your brown back on it. And then you can go back with your coffee bean or your brown, whichever color you're using, and sort of touch that up. If you feel like you can go back with the coffee bean and paint over it, if you feel like the paint is gone enough where you can sort of fill that in, because that happened to me a little bit and I was able to go back over with my coffee bean and just sort of touch it up. But like you said, your best bet, your safest bet is to just dry it really quick with a hair dryer and then go back and touch it up on top of that dry paint. Yeah, and that's why it's always hard to paint wet on wet, especially when we're doing really quick paintings like this. It's always better to let your painting dry between coats or let your painting dry between steps, which is why we oftentimes use a hair dryer for these classes. So I always like to have one on hand whenever I'm painting for that reason.
And what's so great about paint is that you can just paint over it. So
exactly.
If part you don't like and it kind of looks muddy, just let it dry and you can go back over it.
Yeah. I also really like, if you are an impatient painter and you don't like to use the hair dryer when you're painting, I really like to paint on wood panels. So you can see this one actually is a wood panel. So with wood panels, you don't have that problem because it's unfinished. I should say that's an unfinished wood panel. The panel soaks the paint in so quickly and so well that you can't pull the paint back up even if you try. Unlike a canvas where it's finished, canvases pretty much always come pre-gessoed. So there is a finish on your canvas when you buy it from the store. That's what makes it look white instead of this natural color here. This is the color of the canvas, and the white is the gessoed areas. And that's why you're able to pull the paint up off the canvas so easily because it's sort of slippery. It's like a sealer for the canvas. It's not really soaking in the paint, which is a good thing. You don't want your canvas to soak up all of your paint. But like I said, I like to paint on these raw wood panels because when you're doing quick paintings like this, it just absorbs the paint and it takes it so quickly and so evenly that it's easier to just keep painting on top of the paint that you just put down. Okay. Any other questions, Kira?
No, someone is asking about the shadows. Like
Okay.
how to know where to place the shadows. So maybe just go over that again real quick.
Yeah. Okay, so when we started thinking about our shadows, we decided, and by we I mean I decided that I was going to make my light source coming in from the top left. So I was going to pretend that my sun was up here. So let's say this is my sun. This little bundle of Q-tips is my sun. So the sun is shining down on my tree here. So everything opposite of that is going to be in shadow. So everything that this sun would be touching, so the top of this branch, the top of this branch, you can see where it would be hitting inside of these branches here, would all be in sun. Probably this side of this tree would be a little bit in sun. And then on the opposite of all those areas are going to be where our shadows are, everything that's on the other side of those. So that's kind of where you can start thinking about where highlights and shadows are going to be. So I put all of my shadows on the bottom right side of all of my branches. Okay. So I'm glad you asked that question, because now we're going to start painting our highlights. So to do that, make sure you have coffee bean on your palette. And then I'm also going to pick up some Wicker white. I'm going to put a little bit of that on my palette as well. Any white will do for this part. I like Wicker white. It's sort of a warm white color, but any white is fine. So I'm going to pick up some, I still have my number 8 flat brush. It's the same brush we've been using for the past few steps. So my little flat brush, I'm going to pick up some coffee bean, and I'm going to pick up some Wicker white, and I'm going to mix those together. I have about even parts, coffee bean and Wicker white to start. Then we'll see how we like that color. And again, we're mixing the color that's going to be the highlights of our branches. And then don't worry, then we're going to get into the fun part with the Q-tips. So I'm going to pick up a little, I want to be a little lighter, so I'm going to pick up some more white. Start mixing it in. And I'm going to put a little more white because I want it to be lighter still. I think that's a good color. Sort of like a light coffee color. So you can see here, I have like, it's like a mocha color, sort of, this light brown we have here. And so now we're doing the exact same thing we did for our shadows. We're going to do opposite, like I said. So we're going to do it on the opposite side of all of our tree areas. And then we're going to do the same thing where we blend it in with our coffee bean color. So here, I'll do it on the top of this branch. I'm going to dab my color on, my light brown. Then I'm going to wipe off the paint. I'm not going to clean it in the water. And I'm going to blend it in with my coffee bean, just to make it a little more subtle. And do the same thing over here. I'm going to put some highlight on the left side of my tree trunk, so where the light would be hitting it. So it's the opposite of where we put our shadow. I'm going to do some dabbing motions. And then I'm going to blend it in with my coffee bean. Again, I'm not cleaning my brush in between. Maybe just wipe off a little excess paint, but I'm definitely not cleaning it in the water. Just dabbing some coffee bean, overlapping that area till we get it nice and blended. So you can see now we have a nice highlighted side and a low lighted side. We're going to keep doing this on the light areas where the sun will be hitting our tree.
Wicker white and coffee bean, and you're just using your number 8 brush still.
Yep.
And then a lot of people have questions about the palette paper. So this is something, Jesse, you typically use, and I'm pretty sure it's in the instructions in the supply list, but we can include it if not with the SKU that you can get at Michael's. But it's just a great coated piece of paper that you can use as a palette, and it's disposable. And you can really use, you only need 1 per painting. So it's a great thing to use. A lot of people use plastic palettes or paper plates, like a coated paper plate, but anything that's coated works really well.
Yeah, agreed. Like when I'm using acrylic, I don't like using a plastic palette just because it's hard to get the acrylic off, and you just kind of have to build it on top of it, and I don't really like that. So this comes in a pad, it comes in a book. So it's like just, it comes with like 50 pages or whatever. And it's just wax coat, like it's shiny on one side and then it's matte on the other. And I feel like it's less waste. I oftentimes use paper plates or styrofoam plates for mixing my paint, but I just feel like I end up just wasting a lot of paper and styrofoam that way. And this feels like a lot less waste. And you can get it at Michael's for sure. I believe it's in like the fine, if you're gonna go into Michael's, it's in like the fine arts section.
Yeah, they have a couple different brands.
Yeah. Okay, so we're finishing up here. We're getting to the fun part. Not that this wasn't fun, but we're getting to the exciting part, I guess I should say.
Yes, so people are asking when they can use the Q-tips.
We're getting to it, don't worry.
Staring at you, waiting to be used.
It is really fun. It's kind of addictive. I kind of just like want to paint everything with Q-tips now. But brushes are good too.
And I love this technique because you could, you know, do your cherry blossoms, but you could also change it up for fall or, you know, use greens or browns. So it's a great technique for doing leaves or foliage.
Yeah, I like how you can make really beautiful, detailed, like realistic looking paintings with it, but it's also a really fun one for kids. So like you can paint the trunk for them if they have like little kids, and you can bundle the Q-tips and just let them paint the leaves on. Like it's a really, really fun painting for kids to be able to do and then feel like they have something really pretty at the end. It's easy to make it pretty this way. Okay, so I'm gonna stop there with my, my highlights and shading. And we're gonna start using our Q-tips. Since everybody's so anxious to get to it, let's start doing that now. So, as you can see, I have some bundled here already. So I'm gonna grab about 5 Q-tips. I'm gonna bundle them together. And then I'm gonna put, I'm gonna bundle them with a rubber band right around the middle. And you wanna get it pretty tight. It doesn't need to be like super duper tight, but just make sure so they don't really move anywhere, so they're nice and stiff. So you probably have to wrap it, depending on what size rubber bands you have, you probably have to wrap it a good few times. And then you want to make sure, you can see how I have like they're all different heights. You want to make sure you can get them as level as you can. And the reason is because if you have one sticking out, that's the only one that's going to touch the canvas when we start doing our stamping. You want to make sure that it's sort of level so we can get all of those shapes to touch the canvas at one time. So hopefully that makes sense. I'm gonna make sure they're nice and level. I'm kind of use my fingers to make sure they're all even. So they're all gonna be touching the canvas. So I have 3 of them here. That's why I said you'd be safe with 10, because then you have technically 4 different ones. You have 1, 2, and then you have the other ends of them too. So that's 5 and 5. But I have a few more here. So I'm gonna go ahead and bundle them while you guys are bundling yours at home. You probably won't use them all though. I'll save them for my next painting. So again, I just bundled. I have 5 Q-tips here. I have a rubber band. I'm just gonna wrap them all together. Just nice and snug. They don't need to be super tight, just so they don't move around. And again, I'm gonna make sure they're all the same height. I wanna make sure they're nice and level so I get that nice flush sort of stamp action going on when we start adding our cherry blossoms.
Someone's using a binder clip to hold them together. That's a good idea.
Oh, yeah, that's a really good idea. If you don't have rubber bands at home, you can use like a hair tie or something. That's what I always end up using when I don't have rubber bands. I always have lots of hair ties. So anything like that, you could probably tie it with a string even, probably work if you get it really tight. So
hair ties happening. Whatever you got, use it.
Yeah, exactly. People are getting very creative these days, that's for sure. Okay, so I'm gonna let you guys get some of them bundled up. While you're doing that, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna add some of my baby pink to my palette. So I'm gonna put about a nickel-sized amount for now. And like I said, if you don't have, this is just a nice light pink color. If you don't have this color, you can mix red and white and you should get a pretty similar color. We've just got this one here. It says one of my go-to paints. I just really like this color a lot. But if, like I said, if you don't have this color, you can mix white and red and you get something pretty similar. Okay. So again, I just have plain old Q-tips. I've got 5 of them bundled together in the middle. I made sure they're all nice and even. They're all nice and even level at the top. None of them are sticking out any taller than the others. And now we're gonna pick up a little bit of paint. So I'm gonna pick it up and then I'm gonna dab some off because I don't want a ton of paint on them. I don't wanna start like mopping paint onto my canvas. So if you guys are, if any of you are like really big crafters, if you're familiar with stenciling at home, then you might know this as offloading. So we're gonna offload our Q-tips. We're gonna pick up some paint and we're gonna knock some of it off. So there's very little paint on my Q-tips. You wanna start with a little paint and then as you get more comfortable and sort of get the feel of it, you can build it up more and more and put a little more on at a time. So hopefully that makes sense. So start with a little so you can kind of get, like I said, get a feel for how it's gonna feel in your hand and what kind of shapes you're gonna be able to make, and then you can add more paint as you go. So you can see I've got my bundle, I've got my baby pink on my Q-tips. I'm gonna start making a stamping motion and I'm going to really concentrate around where the branches are. Because of course, it wouldn't just be all everywhere, it would be really concentrated where they're growing out of the branches. So I'm gonna start here. I'm gonna start dabbing my Q-tips. You wanna do lots of overlapping too. You want it to look really random. And you can see here, I'm not just stamping, stamping, stamping. I'm twisting and turning it as I stamp because I want to get a different pattern each time I put it down. If I were to go like this, you can see on my paper here, boom, 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 boom. It looks like a grid almost. You probably can't see it that well, but it looks like it's too perfect. You can tell that it's one stamp making the pattern over and over. So you want to move it around, move your wrist around, make sure you're getting different pattern each time you stamp down. And I'm going to sort of start filling it in. You can overlap your branches. Of course, there'd be cherry blossoms in front of these branches too. I'm moving it around. We're going to start layering and building up. I'm going to move it around and make it nice and random, just like it's really in nature. Because of course, nature would never be so, what am I trying to say? It would never be so strict and it wouldn't be so uniform. So again, I'm concentrating around where my branches are. I was adding a little bit for now. We're going to keep building it up. I don't want to start too heavy. I'm going to get a feel for where my colors are, where my shapes are. And don't forget to offload. So you pick up some paint and then you dab it off onto your palette or a napkin or your plate, whatever it is that you've got. And don't forget to twist and turn as you're stamping to get lots of different shapes. You can sort of go off your canvas a little to make it look like it's really just growing out really far and wide. And again, we're just gonna keep building this up. So I always like to, whenever I'm painting something from nature, I always like to pull up a picture of it, whether it's on my phone or I'll print out a picture just from Google or something, just so I have a visual reference, because I always feel like my paintings are more successful that way. So feel free to pull up a picture of a cherry blossom on your phone or on your computer, wherever you are right now, whatever you've got, and just kind of see what the flowers look like. See how they sit on the branch, see how they're sort of clustered, see how the colors are. And that might help you, might give you some inspiration for when you're stamping your cherry blossoms onto your tree. I'm gonna bring it down a little bit. Any questions, Kira?
No, I think it's painting. They were excited to get to this part.
Oh, good. Yeah, this is definitely the fun part. Like Kira said, this is a really fun way to paint like fall leaves, or even like foliage like in a meadow or something, like wildflower or something like that. Just anything that's really random in nature. This is a really fun way to paint it. You can bring up your flowers as high as you want to. And if you feel like you've got a lot of paint and you've really been stamping and it's starting to get kind of mushy, your Q-tips are getting sort of saturated and it's kind of becoming like one big lump, it's time to turn it over and start using the other side or grab another bundle. You don't want them to get too like moppy at the end. You don't want them to get super saturated in paint, because then you kind of just have this one big blob that you're just stamping all over. And you want to make sure you get all those little individual circles. That's kind of what makes it look more realistic, more like actual cherry blossoms. So if you feel like yours is getting too saturated, go ahead and turn your bundle around and start using the fresh side. So again, I just got my little bundle of Q-tips here. I've got 5 Q-tips that I've bundled together with a rubber band in the middle, and we're using it like a stamp to make our cherry blossoms tonight. It's a really, really fun way to paint. It's a very loose way to paint too. So if there's any perfectionists out there, this one might be hard for you, because I'm the same way. I'm a perfectionist when it comes to painting. I'm not so good at the loose painting. Like palette knife painting really stresses me out. I know it is really fun, but it doesn't really come naturally to me. So this is probably more like that for those perfectionists out there. Just kind of let go, turn your brain off, and just let it be what it is. Okay, so when you feel like you've got a good bit of pink on there, you can see I've got a lot on mine right now. We're gonna switch to a different color. So I'm just gonna set my bundle down. I'm gonna hang on to it because I can still use that other side. And I'm gonna pick up Wicker White. So I don't think you can see it, but I already have Wicker White right here on my palette. So I'm gonna pick up some Wicker White and do the same thing. And I'm gonna start concentrating sort of on like the top areas. So I'm gonna start like sort of thinking of them as bunches in my mind around each of these branches. So like here's a bunch around this branch, and here's a bunch around this branch, and I'm gonna start thinking about those highlights and shadows again. So I'm kind of gonna stick to the top of those areas. And if not, you can just really put it anywhere and it'll be just as pretty. But if you wanna, so you can see here, it's sort of like lighter on the top areas, and then it's darker around the bottom areas. So you can just kind of start thinking of it that way. So I'm gonna start sticking to the higher parts for my white. And it's really good to sort of keep this going at sort of a quick pace, because it's really pretty when the white starts to blend in with the wet pink beneath it. So it starts to make all different variations of color. It starts to make even lighter pinks, and it's really pretty. You get a really pretty effect if you like I said, if you work quickly and you start painting right when the light pink is still wet.
Yeah, someone was asking, do you have to wait till the pink is dry? So that's great that you want it to still be wet.
Yeah, it's better if it is wet, in my opinion. It won't hurt it if it's already dry, but I like how they sort of mix together and blend. You get even more variations of color without having to mix any more paint. And if you wanted to just have more white cherry blossoms on yours, that's fine too. If you wanted to just sort of make white the primary color, that's absolutely fine.
That could be really pretty also.
Yeah, absolutely. You could do like, what are those trees around here, Kira, that bloom in the spring, the white ones? Like dogwood trees, that would be really pretty. And if you feel like you want to go back and do a couple more pink ones here and there, you can just turn your little bundle right around. It's sort of like dual action now. We've got 2 colors going in one tool. And then I'm going to flip back around to my white. So when you feel like you've got enough white, you can grab another bundle, and we're gonna grab our engine red. I'm gonna put a little bit of engine red on my palette. Any red is fine for this one. Any just, pure bright red is good. And I'm gonna do the same thing I do with the white, but I'm gonna start focusing a little bit on the undersides of these like bundles that we're sort of imagining our flowers to be. So I'm gonna dip it in there And I'm gonna offload it just like we've been doing. Make sure it's nice and level. And I'm gonna start dabbing in some around the bottom areas. You can see the red is really vivid, so just keep that in mind. Start small. You don't want to start putting too much red on there in case you don't like it, because it is pretty dramatic when you add it to these really soft colors. Just pops out, which we can always go back and blend in with the pink, so don't stress about it. If you feel like you're like, oh no, I just put so much red and I ruined it. You didn't ruin it. You never ruin your painting. There's always a way to fix it, so don't worry. I can show you in just a second how you can go back and just blend it back in with the pink. Here, I'll show you right now. I'll use the other side of mine and dip it back in the pink. And you can see we can totally soften that red. We'll just go right back over that red and just soften it a little. See? Because the red is very dramatic in contrast. But it really, when it starts blending together and you start sort of, you can see I'm sort of switching back and forth between pink and red. When you start really blending those reds and pinks, you start just getting a really wide variety of pink colors, and it really looks like a real cherry blossom tree. It's really beautiful. Easy too, which is the best part. And you can go back and add more white as you go, or go back and add more pink as you go. It's totally up to you. Another little tip too, from when you're really starting to finish up your painting, if you feel like you've got too much flowers at the top, if you feel like you've just gotten really out of control and you just filled the whole top and there's no blue coming through, let your painting dry a little bit, and then grab one of your bundles and pick up some navy blue and dab that on, and that will sort of separate some of the areas. So you can see here, that's kind of what happened for me in this painting. I went through and I had just put way too much of my stamping. I really just got out of control. I just really wasn't paying attention. And so I went back and I added some blue to these, and I sort of separated it so it looks like there's some of the background coming back through. So that's sort of like a cheat to fix your painting if you feel like you've gone a little overboard with your cherry blossoms. You can go back over it when it's dry with a little bit of the navy, and it'll look like, it'll just sort of cover it up. It'll act sort of like an eraser almost.
Hold it up to the camera.
What'd you say, Kira?
You hold your canvas up to the camera.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Everybody was asking to see a close-up.
Oh, yeah. No problem. Hopefully it looks as good up close as it did from far away. Okay, so you can keep doing this. It's really, like I said, it's really easy to go overboard. It's really easy to just keep doing your little stamps forever, but at some point you're probably better off just saying I'm done, and go ahead, you can grab one of your liner brushes and you can sign your painting, because that was the last step for our evening cherry blossoms. So make sure you sign your work of art, because I'm sure that it is absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, people are starting to hold theirs up, which we love that part.
Yay! And that is it for our cherry blossom tree. There we go. Thanks for joining us, guys.
Yeah, thank you everybody. Thank you, Michaels. Thank you everybody for spending your Monday night with us. We truly could not be happier and enjoy it so much. It's definitely a highlight of our week.
Absolutely.
So I'm gonna pick our winner real quick.
Woohoo!
And before I announce, don't forget that you can watch this video, this class, and all our other classes on michaels.com at the community classroom page. Also check out our Let's Paint Paint with Plaid Facebook group because it is a great place that you can post your paintings. You can get a ton of education. Jesse gets on there, Andy, everybody, they love to see what you do. So that's a great place to go.
Speaking of that, if you posted your sunset paintings last week, I have been seeing them. I haven't had a chance to comment on anyone's yet, but I've been looking and they look so good. So keep posting because I have been looking at them. There's a ton of sunsets from last week on there and they all look so, so, so good. So I have to go and comment on them, but they're really awesome looking.
All right. Barb Farley.
Woo! Barb, are you still
Barb,
here?
are you still watching? I have to scroll through everybody.
Barb Farley. Oh, there she is.
Yay!
Congratulations.
Yep, so Barb, you want to go to Plaid's Facebook page, Plaid Crafts on Facebook, and direct message us and let us know that you won, and our team will reach out to you and get you product.
Yeah, congrats.
Yeah. So thank you everybody for joining us. Have a great week. We'll see you next Monday. Everybody's looks so good. Look, I love it. Again, I just want to stay on and watch people paint.
That's awesome. Thanks for joining us, guys. We had so much fun.
Oh, look. All right. Well, thank you guys. Have a great rest of the week. We'll see you next Monday.
Bye.